Hi, and welcome to this Future You session. I'm Aaron, and today we're going to look at pathways mapping. So, the aim of this session is that you'll be able to make more informed choices about your educational journey. So, to do that, you'll be able to recall the qualifications available at different levels. You'll be able to compare the differences and similarities between those qualifications. And you'll also be able to use self-reflection tools to consider which careers and qualifications might be best for you. So before we start, it's important to note that everybody's different, and this means that everybody's pathway is going to be different. So there is no best pathway for everyone, there's only the right path for you. What's right for you might not be right for somebody else. So there are lots of different qualifications you can take at different points in your education journey. Within those qualifications, there's lots of different subjects you can choose as well. So each qualification and subject will suit a different type of person at a different stage of their education journey, and they'll all lead you towards different careers. So how do you figure out which pathway is right for you? The best way to figure this out is to work backwards. So decide what job or industry area you'd like to work in, and then find out what qualifications and subjects can give you the best chance of getting into that job or industry. From there, you can decide which of the qualifications and subjects available best suit your personality and learning style. So this does require you to self-reflect. This basically just means asking questions about yourself in order to get to know yourself better. So self-reflection is important because it allows you to reflect on your mistakes, which stops you from making those same mistakes again and again. So self-reflection allows you to progress in your work and personal life. Self-reflection also allows you to find out more about who you really are, which allows you to make better choices about your future. This is because knowing who you really are can prevent you from just choosing the same options as everybody else around you, or from choosing the most fun-sounding career or course that might not actually be right for you. So self-reflection sounds easy, but it's actually quite challenging and it takes practice. There are lots of different ways to self-reflect. You'll have to find the one that works best for you through trial and error. We're going to show you a couple of different ways you can self-reflect now though. So one way you can self-reflect is by learning more about your personality. So to do that, we're going to do a personality test. We're going to do the Myers-Briggs personality test. You might have heard of this before. So on each slide, there's going to be two characters. You have to pick the character that you think matches you most closely. You'll then have to write down the first letter of that character's name. So at the end of the test, you'll have 4 letters written down, which will match you up to a personality type. It's important to note that this is completely individual, so your answers might be different to the people around you, and that's okay. This is just to give you an insight on your personality, and there is no right or wrong personality. So first, we've got Eddie and we've got Ian. Eddie prefers to think out loud. He likes variety and action. He acts quickly. He's a good talker and he likes to give his opinion. Ian, on the other hand, prefers to think before he speaks. He's a bit quieter and he likes to be careful. He's also a good listener and he likes to keep his thoughts to himself. So are you more like Eddie or are you more like Ian? If you're more like Eddie, write down the letter E. If you're more like Ian, write down the letter I. Next, we've got Sharon and we've got Naz. Sharon likes to look for the facts. She likes details. She focuses on what works now and prefers using what she's learned. She's also more practical and sensible. Naz prefers to look for possibilities. She likes to work out what things mean, and she focuses on how to make things different. She also prefers learning new skills and is more of a dreamer and is more imaginative. So if you're more like Sharon, write down the letter S, and if you're more like Naz, write down the letter N. And now we have Tom and Frank. Tom tends to follow his head. He asks, is this the right decision? He likes rules and principles. He thinks telling it how it is important, and he's good at giving and taking criticism. Frank, on the other hand, prefers to follow his heart. He asks, how will this affect people? He likes pleasing people. He thinks giving praise is important, and he's careful not to upset anybody. So if you're more like Tom, write the letter T, and if you're more like Frank, write the letter F. And finally, we've got Jane and we've got Paula. Jane likes to plan and organize things. She likes making decisions. She prefers finishing tasks. She likes using lists, and she's quite tidy. Paula prefers to see how things turn out. She prefers keeping her options open. She likes starting tasks, and she'd rather not use lists, and she doesn't mind if things are untidy. If you're more like Jane, write the letter J, and if you're more like Paula, write the letter P. So you should now have your 4 letters, and these 4 letters are going to come together to give you your personality type. So the person facilitating this session should have handouts detailing all of the different personality types. Your personality type is going to tell you a bit more about yourself, and it's also going to give you suggestions for jobs which might suit someone with your personality type. So I'd like you to take a couple of minutes to have a look over your personality type. If this is something that interests you, there's lots more information about these personality types out there. So I recommend making note of your personality type, and then you can go and do further research into this after the session. So please pause this video now to look over the personality types. Next, we're going to do another self-reflection task for you to get to know yourself a bit better. So I want you to picture yourself in your mind. Think about what words best describe you, what qualities and ethics are most important to you, what do you find interesting and exciting, and what are your hopes and dreams for the future? I want you to hold that picture in your mind, and then you're going to start writing all of that information down. You're going to have 4 minutes, and once you start, you can't stop writing. The pen must not stop moving. If you do run out of things to say, don't panic. Just go back to that picture of you in your mind and keep writing. It doesn't need to make sense. There doesn't need to be any sentence structure, and the spelling doesn't matter. This is just for you to learn a bit more about yourself. After 4 minutes, you're going to stop, and then I'd like you to go back through what you've written and highlight any parts that could be useful for you when you're deciding on careers. Please pause the video now to do this task. So we've just looked at 2 different self-reflection methods. If you do want to learn more, there are lots of other self-reflection techniques out there that you can try. Some more examples would be using a journal or writing a diary. You could also ask your friends and family to describe you in 3 to 5 words. You can extend this by making it into a Johari window. You can look this up for more information, but it basically just means making a table that splits what you know about yourself from what other people know about you. So now you've learned a little bit more about yourself, you can use that information to help you decide on a career or an industry area you'd like to work in. But why do that now? So having an idea of a career or an industry you'd like to work in helps make those choices, like which GCSEs you're going to study, or what you're going to do after high school or college, a little easier and potentially more effective. So it means you're more likely to choose subjects or qualifications that will benefit your future career. It's also good to have a long-term goal in mind because it gives you motivation. So when things aren't going well in your day-to-day life, having that distant target helps to take the emotion out of those immediate situations, and it gives you something to continue working towards. So how do you actually find a career that might be right for you? There's lots of different factors to think about when choosing a career or a job. One of the first factors people usually think about is the salary, so how much money you earn. Obviously, this is important, but is it the most important thing when choosing a job for you? So a lot of people nowadays can look at the job satisfaction more than the salary. So that's how happy you are when you're actually doing that job. You might also want to think about what your passions are. So do you know what you're interested in? And can you find a job that matches that passion? You might also want to think about your talents. So do you know what you're good at? And can you find a job that allows you to use those talents? So these could be talents that you naturally have, or they could be talents that you want to improve. So here we've got 7 different factors that people might want to think about when choosing a career or a job. I want you to list these factors from what's the most important to you when choosing a career or a job to what's the least important to you. So the factor that you think is the most important would be at the top of your list. After you've done that, I want you to write down 3 talents that you have, 3 words to describe your personality, and 1 thing that you're passionate about. Please pause the video now to carry out these tasks. So, as we've already mentioned, there's lots of factors to consider when choosing a job, and some factors are more important to some people than others. So there's been some research done into what people around the country think is the most important thing when you're choosing a job. This list shows what people thought was the most important to what people thought was the least important. So right at the top of the list, the factor that people around the country thought was the most important when choosing a job was just enjoying what you do. So most people found that being happy was the most important thing to them. This is important because work's something that you're going to spend a lot of your time doing for most of your life. So it's important that it's something that makes you want to get out of bed every morning. Next on the list was being proud of what you've achieved and then doing a job that makes a real difference to people's lives. So you might want to find a role that has a real impact on other people. After that was working for a company you love. So a lot of people nowadays are focusing more on what the actual company looks like than what the job role looks like. working for a company that matches your values or works in a way that suits you can be just as satisfying as having a job that you enjoy. And you can see right at the bottom of that list was earning a high salary. So this was the least important factor to people when considering which job they'd want. So how can you actually find out about all of the different careers out there? There's lots of different careers out there, and you probably haven't heard of them all yet. So one way you can learn more about what's out there is to use the National Careers Service website. This is a really useful website with information on hundreds of different jobs. So you can look up a specific industry or job sector and then see all of the different careers available within that sector. You can also look up specific jobs to find out a bit more about what the job's like, what skills you might need for that job, and how much money you might earn from that job. The National Careers Service website also has different skills assessments you might find useful, so you can learn a bit more about your skills and what careers they might be suitable for. You could also use the Lancashire Skills and Employment Hub. So this has more local advice about the jobs that are going to be available in Lancashire. There's also a tool section specifically for 16 to 24-year-olds to find support and careers. You might also find it useful to speak to teachers and careers advisors at school or college, so they'll be able to tell you a bit more about what careers are out there and what might be right for you. You could also create a list of all of the potential careers you might be interested in, so you can then research these careers further. So you might be able to find first-hand accounts on YouTube of people who already have these jobs. So they'll be able to tell you a bit more about what the job's actually like, so you can figure out if it might be right for you or not. So we've been over a little bit about how you can find a career that's right for you. And we know that it's important to have a career or an industry you'd like to work in mind, because it helps make those choices in terms of what you're doing next in education a little easier. So it helps you decide which qualifications and subjects you want to take. So now we're going to go over a little bit about the different qualifications available to you. This pyramid shows the pathway into a career. It's a good visual to use because it shows how each step relies on the success of the previous step. It also shows how you narrow down your area of focus until you land on one job. So it's useful to have a career goal in mind because it helps you plan ahead and make sure the subjects you're doing can take you to that job you want. It is important to remain open-minded about what you'll be doing in the future though, because life does have a habit of throwing curveballs. So if you are too fixated on one career goal, you might miss other opportunities available that might be more suited to you. Or you might be unable to adapt effectively if the opportunity for that chosen career is taken away from you. So this is another visual of the potential pathways available to you in education. So GCSEs sit at level 1 and level 2, and then after that you've got to do a level 3, which is considered further education, and that might include A-levels, BTECs, T-levels and apprenticeships. After that you can go on to study higher education at level 4 and above. This might include a degree at university, a higher national certificate or diploma, and a higher apprenticeship or a degree apprenticeship. And you can study all the way up to level 8. This is typically split into 3 different routes. So these are known as the academic route, the vocational route, and the work-based route. These routes are all taught in different ways, so they suit different people. We're going to go into a bit more detail about these different routes now. So the first one of the potential pathways you could take would be the academic route. So this is where you'd study your GCSEs at school, and then you'd go on to study A-levels at college or sixth form. You could then continue studying and do an undergraduate degree at university. This is typically a 3-year course and covers levels 4, 5 and 6. If you really enjoy the subject you're studying, you could then go on to study it further with a master's degree and a doctorate or a PhD. This is where you become a doctor of a certain subject. So this pathway is particularly good if you're not sure exactly what you want to do and you want to keep your options open. It's also good if you like the idea of studying some of the subjects you really enjoy at a deeper level. The second pathway available to you is the vocational pathway. So this is where you could take BTECs that are equivalent to GCSEs. At college, you can then study T-levels or BTEC Nationals. If you chose to study at level 4 or above, you could do a foundation degree or a higher national certificate or higher national diploma. Foundation degrees and higher national diplomas are 2-year courses, but you can also take a final top-up year to take that to a level 6 qualification, which is equivalent to a degree. So the vocational pathway is where subjects are more practical. They're also usually linked to a potential future job role or employment sector. So these courses are particularly good if you prefer to learn in a more practical, hands-on environment. So they're better if you learn best by doing something rather than sitting and listening to someone talking to you. They're also good if you already have a potential idea about the type of job or career sector you want to work in the future. So the third potential pathway available to you is the work-based learning pathway. So this starts with intermediate apprenticeships at level 1 and 2, and then advanced apprenticeships at level 3. You could then carry on to study higher apprenticeships, which cover all the way from level 4 to level 7, and degree apprenticeships. So the work-based learning path is where you're working for an employer for most of the week, and then you spend some time in an educational setting. So this helps develop your readiness for work and means you're ready to go into a job straight away after finishing the apprenticeship. This is particularly useful if, again, you're more practical and hands-on, and if you already have a good idea of the job or the career sector you want to work in. It's also good if you want to earn money whilst you're learning. So there are lots of different pathways available to you, and lots of routes through these pathways can lead to the same end goal. So for example, if you wanted to become an engineer, you could finish your GCSEs and then go on to study A-levels. You then might go on to do a degree in engineering before becoming an engineer. You don't have to pick one of these pathways and stick to it though. You can move between the different pathways at different points in your education journey. So you might decide after you've finished your GCSEs that you want to study a T-level. You might then go on to study a degree apprenticeship in engineering before becoming an engineer. Another example would be you could finish high school with your GCSEs and then go on to study BTECs. You might then go to university to do a degree in engineering, but at the end of the degree, you might decide that you want a bit more industry experience before getting a job and you want to learn a little bit more detail about engineering. So you might go on to do a degree apprenticeship. before becoming an engineer. So there's lots of different pathways to the same goal, and there's lots of factors that can impact which pathway you end up taking. So one factor is your clarity about what you want to do. So if you know exactly what you want to do, you might decide to use the vocational or the work-based pathway to get experience in that area straight away. If you're less sure about what you want to do, you might end up sticking to that academic route so you can keep your options open. Your pathway might also be influenced by what you think you'll enjoy and be good at. So if you know you learn better in a hands-on, practical environment, you might be better using the vocational or the work-based route. If you know you enjoy learning more about specific subjects in detail in a classroom environment, the academic route might be better for you. Your personal motivation might also influence your pathway. So if you're influenced by earning money, you might want to use the work-based pathway. If you're motivated by learning more in depth about subjects that you enjoy, you might want to use the academic pathway. Your personal circumstances and commitments might also influence your pathway. So for example, if you can't travel far or move away to go to university or to do an apprenticeship, a higher national certificate and diploma might be better for you. It's also important to note that you don't have to follow these steps one after the other. So after level 3, you might decide that you want a break from education to just work and earn money for a bit before going back in to do a degree. A lot of people will finish a degree and get a job in the area they enjoy, but then want to go on and study that area further with a master's degree a few years later. So there is no right or wrong answer when it comes to choosing what to study and how to study at level 4 and above. For some people, being a university student, attending lectures, and studying a subject in depth is the best way for them to learn. Other people might prefer the more hands-on approach of an apprenticeship, where you're building knowledge whilst working on the job at the same time. Both of these ways have benefits, and they both leave you with a degree that can help you in getting the career you want. For apprentices, the clearest benefit is having a salary or being paid whilst you're working towards your degree. This is in addition to your employer paying the cost of the course for you, because studying at level 4 and above isn't free. So through an apprenticeship, you achieve a high-level qualification, but you're also getting significant employment experience in the field or industry that you're passionate about. And then after your course is finished, you get to go straight into full-time work in a company that values you and that you already have strong links with. For full-time students, there are different benefits. So there are tens of thousands of courses to choose from at hundreds of universities all over the country. So this allows you to study something in depth, and it allows you to study something really specific if you want to. Another big draw of university is the student experience or the lifestyle. So for a lot of people, the important part of university is the social aspect of meeting new people, broadening your horizons, and learning a bit more about yourself. Whilst you're at uni, there's also lots of opportunities for work experience and development that can go onto your CV. So there are things like internships and work placements available. People often worry about the money side of university because you do have to pay to go to university, but student loans are available to almost everybody to help them pay for their course. And you never pay back more money than you can afford. So we've covered a lot of information in today's session. We've looked at how you can get to know yourself a bit better and then how you can use that information to find a career that might be right for you. We've also looked at the different pathways into those careers. So what do you need to do next to carry on mapping out your future pathway? You'll need to decide on your career goals and what you want to do as a job in the future. You'll then need to look into what qualifications and subjects can get you to those career goals. And then you'll have to think about which of those qualifications and subjects might be right for you. If college and university are right for you, you'll also have to think about which college and university you want to go to. So, to help you with planning out your future pathway, you could go to careers fairs. This is where there'll be lots of different employers from different job sectors there to talk to you about the work they do. So you'll be able to find out a lot more about different jobs from people who've actually worked in those jobs. This will help you see if those jobs are right for you or not. There's also colleges and universities at careers fairs, so you can speak to them and figure out if those colleges and universities might be right for you. You should also keep participating in extracurricular activities you find interesting or you're passionate about, so you can carry on developing those skills and passions to eventually lead you to a career. It might also be useful for you to discuss your future pathway with the people around you. So this could be your teachers or careers advisors, or it could be parents and carers. These are all people who'll have information to be able to help you decide on what pathway might be right for you. It's also useful to set yourself targets so you know you're working towards your future pathway. So this could be aiming for a certain grade in a subject you want to progress in. Your target could also just be to continue developing your skills or talents in particular areas you're passionate about and might want to take further. So the most important thing to take away from this session is that you do actually have to do something to plan and work towards your future pathway. So we've gone through lots of things you might want to think about when mapping out your pathway, and now you've actually got to map out your future pathway. So this something that you've got to do is going to be different for everybody, because your pathways are all going to look different, and you're going to be at different stages of planning out that pathway. So I want you to think about what you can do next to map out your future pathway. Okay, so that's the end of today's session. Thank you for listening and taking part. If you do want any more information on anything we've spoken about today, visit our Lancashire Future You website or follow any of our social media accounts. I wish you all the best of luck in planning your future pathways.